Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's another day and it's another step in the Willy's Little Red Wagon project. We're cruising along on this thing. We're kind of almost finished with the front end. We're waiting on a few parts for the power steering to get the power steering. So that means let's set our sights on the back end of this thing. And you know, it's got its issues. Somebody with a Sawzall and they cut out the original fender flares due to a little bit of rust right there, and I made way more work for myself than I needed to. I did that a long time ago. I had plans. I was going to order all new patch panels, and the more I think about it, the less I like that idea. We'll figure out what we're going to do at that juncture. But today, well, we're just going to get this thing lifted up, put it on jack stands for the back end, and primarily tonight, I'm just going to get some measurements and some math. Because here's the deal. We're doing something very similar to what we did on the front end. We're going with Wagoneer leaf springs in the rear. I'm undecided whether I'm going to go with lift springs or a spring over. I have the stock Wagoneer springs, so I'm going to mock this up as a spring over. See how I like the ride height. See if it's what I want, right? If that gives me too much of the stink bug with the nose down too far look, or even the old Carolina squat with the nose up in the air, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the stink bug look. And then I'll have to decide if I want to go ahead and pull the trigger on ordering some lift springs and what height those would be, or if I'm happy with the stance. So I'll be honest. I kind of like the stink bug stance a little bit. It's a little bit of a hot rod stance. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all when I see a 4x4 going down the road like that. I like that way better than the Carolina squat. So anyways, I'm just going to jack this thing up, throw some jack stands on underneath it, and start measure taping and planning this part of it out. It's going to be the same process as the front end. Actually, it's a lot simpler, right? So here's the deal. On the front end, you've got an offset differential, and your spring perches are set. Typically, they're cast right into the differential. So your spring perches are set for width and position, and you have to work around that. On the rear end, your differential is centered, and your spring perches can end up anywhere on there. So you can just put your spring hangers directly on the frame. There's not going to be any overhang or any offset that we have to triangulate and anything like that. We can put it directly on the frame, directly in line, right over the axles. It's way simpler on the back end. It's just night and day. So hey, give me a couple minutes. We'll get this thing jacked up and on some jack stands. And I hate to admit it, I think this homemade back bumper is going to have to go too. I don't know what I'll go back with. Either a different homemade bumper, or I've got a couple of the stock bumpers kicking around. Those shiny chrome bumpers, they look pretty good. I am going to have to figure out a way. I do want a toe point on this vehicle as well. Now I'll see if I can drop this down gently with this really stiff old Harbor Freight floor jack that perfect. All right. All right, I'm happy with that. All right, we'll take a look underneath here and figure out what we have going on and where we want to end up. So I've been procrastinating this about as long as I can. It's time to get this rear suspension pulled off and the new one installed. Here's the deal. It's technically not that hard of a job. I just gotta pull off the leaf springs, drill out and cut off the spring hangers, weld some new ones on. Easy peasy, right? Any monkey could do that. Well, here's the problem. It's a small problem. It's me, laying on a creeper on the floor of my garage with a couple of jack stands. That's the problem. There's no leverage. There's no access. Just me whining about it, right? This is the point where I regret my life's choices, and I realize I should have been playing the lottery or something similar so I could afford a shop with a lift. Perfect. That's not so bad. I'm not. This is fine, guys. It's part of the deal. It's going to, just got to take this a little bit slow. I won't get it all done tonight. I'll try to get one set of springs and hangers off of here, and get the next set, get the spring and hangers off of one side, get the new ones installed, and put a spring on there. Look, we're supported with jack stands. Of course, there's always seems to be a recall on jack stands, and you know, they're going to kill you one way or the other. But we're supported. But still, I'm going to work on one half at a time. Get the leaf spring mounts off, get the new mounts on, get the new springs put in place until we get the other side done. And so it's just going to be just a stepwise process. And it's always a challenge figuring out which tools are the right, correct, and proper tools to use for said operation. Looks like the claw hammer for the win in this case. All right. So, did I put the punch back? Of course I probably didn't. All right. Front spring is out, or out of the way. Let's go around to the back, pull off that spring shackle hanger. Get this spring out the way. Holy cow, good golly, Miss Molly. Now I'm thinking here, I know it's a dangerous thing. Well, I'm not thinking, I'm just complaining. We've got way too many threads on those U-bolts. Just a complaint. All right, it's another fun-filled episode of laying on my back underneath a Jeep, having fun. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to try to cut these off right here at the bottom of the nut. See if I can get those to spin off. If not, then we'll just cut them all the way off. See what this is like without all the junk that we're trying to run those threads over. U-bolts coming for this project. So you might ask yourself, why am I even bothering? And the simple reason is, I'm a chicken. Yeah. See, I'm underneath this vehicle. It's supported on jack stands. And well, I don't want an uncontrolled release of energy. So by cutting these U-bolts off, I can get an impact or a bounce, potentially. And could hurt me, as in hurt me to death. So I want a controlled release of that energy. Basically, I want to see this spring perch come free from the axle, or from the spring. I want to see the spring come free from the axle in a controlled fashion and make sure that we are not bound up anywhere. Or anything like that. Oofta, my arms are getting tired. You know, maybe I'll just lop off the U-bolts on the other spring. We'll see how I feel when I get over there. There we go, old spring perch. Spring perch, spring plate, and springs are off. All right, we can go to the back now, and we should be able to get this spring out. Actually, that spring should just about be ready to fall out on its own. Just should be some rust holding it up there. But let's go get the spring off of the back and get that snaked out of here, and then we can look at taking off the spring perches. Yeah, progression. Perfect. Yep, yepers. Yeah, bushing's in great shape. Decades more of use. All right, I got to drill out a couple of rivets. A couple 4 rivets. I gotta clean that up and see what I gotta do. But I gotta get the side plate off, and then I can take off the actual spring hanger. How am I going to get my drill up in here? Oh my goodness. All right, here's where we find if my sharpening of the drill bits had any effect. I'm also using a little bit of a, let's see if I can get down in here, a 2x4 for some leverage as a poor man's drill press, right? So I lever up on this 2x4, that's going to put pressure on the drill so I'm not pushing up so much. I'm hopeful that that'll help me cut through these rivets. I think it will. I think we're in good shape. I think that's working out pretty slick, if you ask me. All right, next size drill bit. Bit by bit, we'll get these things drilled out. Oh, dead battery. Bummer. Both of the batteries on my old DeWalt are dead, charging, so I had to pull out my Christmas present. We got it weakened enough. Looks like we do. Beautiful. So these back ones were just held on by rivets. No weld at all. That's amazing. All right, I'll have to clean that up. Grind that rivet flush. Clean up the frame rail. And yeah, get ready to install the rear spring hanger. It'll be great. You know, these projects are always full of little design decisions. I've got my spring hangers here for the rear spring. And right here on my frame, I've cleaned off the original spring hanger, ready to install it. That's the position that my spring eye used to be. It has to go 1 5/8 inches forward. So I've got a choice. I can install it this way, right about here. And you can see that I have a nice flat seam to weld to right there. Now here's the deal though. The way this thing is designed, it has this slope, and the intent is that this is the head of your leaf spring, so that when you start grinding over rocks, that will slide over, the rock will slide up onto your leaf spring. So it'll go onto your leaf spring something like that. And it's an interesting theory. So that's the difference. Am I going to mount my spring hanger like this or like that? Here's the other part of the equation. I've got a rivet right here. This goes to a frame cross member. There's one right there. I could probably grind off the head of the rivet and not really lose any of the holding capacity because it's depending on the friction fit, you know, the hole in the frame. But yeah, we know we'll lose some holding capacity. So if I grind off the head of that rivet and then weld this in place, it goes right about there. You can see that's where the frame starts to bend. So from here to there, I have that gap. And I would have to reinforce, fill in, or otherwise strengthen that. I'm not fully convinced, but I believe what we're going to do is we're going to reverse these. Oops, reverse these. And we're going to install it just like that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is progress. A little bit of progress. I got it tacked on there. It'll hold long enough for me to get the springs on, get it on the suspension, and get everything figured out. All right, we're looking at another milestone moment in this project, and this is setting up the rear leaf springs. I got the front tacked into place. I'm happy with where the tire is, centered in the wheel well, even though the wheel well's been, you know, a little bit modified. But let's check this out. We have roughly 3 inches to the rear and 3.5 to the front. Perfect. Close enough. We're good, right? We could move it 1/4 inch forward. I'm not moving it 1/4 inch forward. You move it 1/4. We're not doing it. Anyways, here's what we got going on. I got my sweet Harbor Freight jack with the spring bolt plate on the spring perch on the axle tube. You guys can't see nothing, it's too dark. And I jacked it all up so that the spring is resting on the frame. And I've jacked it up enough that the tire is off the ground. What does that mean? That means that this spring is basically at its ride length. As it gets compressed, it's going to stretch out. This is going to be its standard ride length. So if we go straight up from the spring eye, if we were to weld this spring shackle straight up, this spring hanger straight up, our spring shackles would be vertical. We don't want that. We want a bit of a forward lean. How much? Let me be the first to say that that didn't work. Now, those aren't my shackles, okay? Those are some scrap I had laying around. I thought I'd just slap it on here, mock it up. And, well, it's not what I thought. I thought that we would have about 2 inches. Instead, we have more than 2 inches. We have roughly, get that tape measure. Okay. I'm saying we have close to 3.5 inches or so. Extra 1.5 inches that spring, the leaf spring, has flattened out. Here's what I suspect happened. I jacked it up. Spring was just sliding on the frame. It hit a burr, it hit something, it stopped sliding. I'll bet you if we had just jumped on up and down on this a couple of times, the spring would have slipped out, and then we would have had a better measurement. It didn't, we don't. It's all right, not the end of the world. Like I say, it's just steel. I'll cut those welds. They're not great welds anyway. We'll cut those welds out of the way, move it back, well, about 2 inches, and all will be right in the world. Off the ground, jack stand is loose. I actually like that. That's a reasonable spring shackle angle. We're good with that. We'll make the other side match, you know. It'll only take a few dozen hours of work to get to there, but progress. We'll make some new spring shackles to put on there before we go too much further. Well, it's Saturday. I'm exhausted. I like to run. I went for a nice 18-mile run this morning. It's now just after lunch. Back on the little red wagon, on the Wicked or Willy's. Here's the problem, or here's where we're at. All week, I'd come home after work, go for a little run, and then work on this Jeep. And I'd work on it for an hour, hour and a half hour. I had one night where I came out and worked for 20 minutes. It took me all week just to get to this point, to where I have a spring hanger sitting right here, the leaf spring connected to the spring hanger on the front end. Everything just tack welded into place. We've talked about this. I'm just tack welding it because all I have is my Miller-Matic 135 for inside the garage here. Soon as I'm happy with all the tack welds, I'll drive it over to the barn, hook up my buzz box, and we'll burn those welds in. What do I want to do today? Well, this guy here, he wants to get this sitting at its final level. So I'm going to bolt the leaf spring to the axle, and it'll go somewhere over there. I gotta, get a real spring hanger there too. Anyways, I'm going to bolt the leaf spring to the axle. That's going to mess up the height right there. I know it will. I'm cool with that. We'll get back to that. We'll just jack this Jeep back up when it comes time for the spring shackle hanger. Here's the thing. I want this thing to be as close to level as I can front to back. So we're going to get this kind of all bolted up, and then we're going to do some measuring and see how close to level we are, and if we need to make some adjustments to the design. So yeah, let me get this thing bolted on here real quick. It'll be quickish. I'm kind of tired of laying on the garage floor. I keep saying I need a better hobby. I might just need better tools to really take this hobby to the next level. But regardless, that's not where I'm at today. So for today, I'm going to grab my U-bolts, grab my spring perch, get all that stuff bolted on here, and get that much closer. My goal for today is actually to drive this over to the barn and start buzzing these spring shackle hangers in place permanently. We'll see if I can get, I should be able to get there. But you never know what's going to crop up. You can't get too upset when you don't get as much done as you think you should in your head, because sometimes the Jeep, it just tells you what you're going to get done for the day, and you just have to go with it. So by welding these 4 pieces together, I can drill my holes through the entire block, get the holes in the exact same position. I'll have identical spring shackle hangers when I'm done there. Shouldn't take me too long to get those drilled out. So I'll head over to the drill press and get this knocked out. 1/2-inch holes, 2 1/2-inch holes, and then probably 3/8 or so for the center. For the center bolt, that's center bolt and spacer. Yeah, we'll go get that done real quick. Got the old Harbor Freight drill press. Hasn't let me down yet. Well, today. There we go. Oh, oh yeah. I'm not getting any younger, I tell you what. That's a little warm. There we go. 4 functionally identical, what do you call those? Leaf spring shackles pairs, or so 2 pairs. Now, could I have just bought a set? Yeah, I didn't know the length I wanted until today though. So I would have measured, gotten the length I wanted, ordered it, and then, you know, Amazon would have had it here in a day or 2, or Summit, or let's see, there's a dozen different places. Places actually are dedicated to 4x4s. They could have it here in a few days, later this week, and I could have moved on to other stuff, but I'm kind of a linear thinker. I like to get started on a project or a process, and I like to get to the next step. I don't like bouncing around. I do it when I have to, but I definitely prefer not to. Now, manufactured ones, yeah, they'd be better. My top hole, that's not perfectly centered. Functionally, doesn't matter. As long as I put them going in the correct orientation, they're going to match up, and all the holes will align the way they should. For a perfectionist, that might be the deciding factor. But let's face it, guys, nothing is perfect. Nothing ever will be, nothing can be. All you can do, well, is good enough. I've been thinking about that while I was cutting these out. There's a difference between just as good and good enough. Are these just as good as what I can buy commercially? No. Nope, they're not. Are they good enough? Yeah, they are. So not only are they good enough, but they're here right now. So I can keep moving and making progress on this project. There's people who will argue about your opportunity cost and what's the value of your time. And I'm not going to say that they're wrong, but they're wrong. See, here's the deal. I make a reasonable living as an engineer. I could afford to buy these. And the thought process is, well, why don't you just work a little bit extra to purchase the parts that you want? That will be better. Well, I'm an engineer. I can't just work overtime. I'm on salary. Anytime I work on overtime is just time away from what I want to be doing. Actually, I don't mind my job. It's actually pretty cool. So I could get a second job. Might pay more. I could do some freelancing, but then you can run into legal and moral issues if I have a non-disclosure or a non-compete clause in my contract. So I'd probably have to work for less money than I'm worth. And I'd be working. I wouldn't be working on what I want to. So yeah, building this kind of stuff, it's not a lost cause. Not for me. I think it's time well spent. I'm going to know this Jeep inside and out. I'm going to have confidence in the pieces and parts. And I'll know which pieces and parts I might be a little bit leery of. I bought some parts. You saw that. Nothing wrong with that. Those parts would have taken me days to build. And it wouldn't have saved me any money. These, if I look at just the material costs, they're a third the cost of a set of production ones. So yeah, they saved me a little bit of money, but that's not the deal. I can do it quickly. It took me an hour, hour and a half. And I have them here right now. So how about I quit yapping about how superior that is and bolt them on and move from there. Let's try. Spring shackles are on. I like the angle. I think we're in reasonable shape. We're not quite level. We're still 6 to 8 tenths of a degree off. That's going to put us just about, well, front end's going to be about 2 inches high when everything's all said and done. We'll have to see how it looks. But as for now, I gotta clean stuff up, get stuff out of the way so I can pull this thing out of the garage. I ought to throw some shocks on here too. I mean, this thing is, you know, just sitting on springs. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, maybe I ought to see if I have any shocks kicking around to toss on this bad boy. Think about that. All right, I'm starting to see the vision. Those front tires look kind of, well, ridiculous. Those back tires, well, the back suspension's a little bit low. We've got some adjustment to do, but I'm starting to see the vision. So anyways, I just pulled it over to the barn so I can plug in my buzz box and burn some welds in on all those spring mounts and make this thing solid. Yeah, I got some work to do. Ugh. No worries about fire. It's still pretty, well, squishy out here. We're just about a week or two away from being able to get out in the field. So I'm in a hurry to kind of get this thing drivable. A little bit too fast on that pass. That was better. Well, it's pretty from far and far from pretty. We've got these braces welded on right here to account for what's overhanging on the frame there. I think that that's perfectly legitimate. Steel, of course, is stronger in tension than compression, but that's such a short span. Look, I could do the math. It's strong enough. There's lots of other failure points that'll fail long before that that brace fails. What would end up happening is the frame rails would end up twisting long before that brace collapses. And if the frame rails show any evidence of twisting, we'll address that. I don't think it will. I think we're in pretty good shape. So what does it mean? Well, sun's going down. I've got about 10 more minutes, golden hour. I don't know what this is. Very little light left. We're getting there, but we're running up against time here, guys. It's almost springtime, and I've got work to do in the fields. So that's all right. I love working in the fields too. Hopefully you guys like watching those videos. What does that mean? That means I got to buy tires and wheels for this thing, drive it around a little bit, and that's kind of where it's going to be. We're just about drivable, and our goal is to get it drivable, and then I'd like to drive it a little bit this summer and try to work through some of the process, right? Try to work through some of the details, the deals that are, and figure out what's going on next. That's about the right size of tire that's going on there anyway, so, you know, I think it'll look pretty sharp. That'll raise it up another 1.5 inches in the air. I think we're in good shape. Thanks for watching, guys. Go work on your junk, right? You won't regret it. Catch you on the next video.